Hi, this is Miss Piercy with the Module 4 video about technical definitions and also about assignment 4. Now you guys all know what definitions are, but what makes technical definitions a little bit distinctive is the fact that they're designed to present specialized or technical information for people who are novices or non-experts. So it's like you're translating technical concepts to a general audience. So that's what makes it a little bit different. Because of that, and really in any situation where you might give definitions, you need to be aware of what your audience already knows because you want to provide the correct level of detail for your audience's previous experience and for whatever they need to accomplish in this document. There are 3 broad levels of technical detail that we expect in technical definitions. We're going to focus a little bit more on the sentence definitions because that's what you're going to be doing for assignment 4, but we're going to talk about all 3 of these in brief. The parenthetical definition is the briefest one. Essentially, you're just providing a 1 or 2 word synonym of the technical term within parentheses right after you've used the technical term. So this doesn't work for everything, but it works for certain situations very well. It's very quick, it doesn't interrupt the reading very much, and then once you've done it, you can go ahead and continue to use the technical term because you've defined it. So here's a quick example of what a parenthetical definition looks like. The trees are mostly deciduous, leaf-bearing. So our technical term is deciduous. Our parenthetical definition is leaf-bearing, and it works well here because there is a very short synonym of deciduous, and it also works well because this is a simple concept. We are all familiar with trees. We've all seen trees with leaves versus trees with needles, so it doesn't require a lot of explanation. We just need a reminder of what we're talking about. But you can see that's not going to work for everything. That's only going to work for specific kinds of situations. So sentence definition is the next level up, and as the name implies, it means that you're writing a complete sentence for your definition. There are 3 components required in a sentence definition. The first part is the name of the thing you're defining. The second part is the class or category that the thing you're defining belongs to. The third part is whatever features make the thing you're defining different from other things in that same class or category. And all 3 pieces of information are presented in a single, coherent, grammatical sentence. So here's what that looks like. Let's say we want to define the word stress. Now, stress can have different meanings depending on what I'm talking about. I could say I'm feeling really stressed these days because the semester is starting soon and I've got problems with my kids or whatever, but that's talking about my emotional state. Let's say I don't want to talk about that. Let's say I'm an engineer. I want to talk about mechanical stress, let's say. So right off the bat, you can see we're in a different category of concept than the emotional kind. So in this case, I could say that stress is an applied force. So now we kind of know which ballpark we're playing in. We're not playing in the emotional ballpark. But there are a lot of things that are applied force, and not all of them are stress. What makes stress different or distinctive from other kinds of applied forces or just applied forces generally? Well, stress is an applied force that strains or deforms an object. If I apply a force on something, such as putting my hand and pressing down on my desk, but I don't strain or deform it, I have not stressed it. When we put these 3 parts together in a sentence, it flows grammatically. Stress is an applied force that strains or deforms an object. And this is what we're talking about for sentence definitions, and these are the kind of definitions you'll be writing in assignment 4. Now, higher up the food chain or farther up the food chain are expanded definitions, because sometimes a sentence isn't long enough to describe or define a concept, or perhaps it's something that's very complex, or it just requires more information for that audience in that situation. There are different ways we can expand a definition that depend on the situation and the audience's information needs. I should note that many expanded definitions will still begin with a sentence definition at its core, and then the expansion will go forth from that. You will not be creating expanded definitions for assignment 4. You will only be using sentence definitions. For any definition, there are certain things we want to think about, such as what's going to be an effective place to put this in our document, what level of detail is appropriate to our audience's information needs or the situation. We want to make sure we're not just being circular, defining the word, using the word, saying something like a work stoppage is when people stop working. That's not very helpful. There are certain things that are more specific to sentence definitions, such as classifying the item precisely, differentiating the item accurately, and expanding the definition selectively if appropriate. So even a sentence definition can be expanded a little bit as long as it fits within the sentence, such as maybe giving a very quick example. Now that doesn't fit every situation, but it could fit a lot of situations. Assignment 4 is going to ask you to create some sentence definitions. You'll want to begin by making sure you've read the relevant textbook assignment as well as the full assignment instructions that describe the situation. But essentially the situation is that I've asked you to define some basic computer terminology for a senior citizen, Ms. Rosanna Blakely, who is, an educated adult but is not tech savvy. And so I've given you 13 words or concepts that you will need to define using one sentence for each concept. And you'll want to make sure that the vocabulary you choose is appropriate for someone who is an educated adult but who just is not computer savvy. You want to use a format that is appealing and logical, document design features to add readability, and just a general approach that's going to present this information in the most effective way possible. Criteria asks you to present this in memo format, so I will be looking for you to have correct memo format. If I left any feedback on assignment 3 about memo format problems, be sure you remind yourself of how you can fix that before you do assignment 4. You'll want to have a page design that is logical and appropriate. You'll want to make sure you define all of the words you were asked to define, and you'll want to use sentence definitions that adequately classify the items you're defining and accurately clarify them. You want to make sure you're using general language English, so no specialized or technical terminology. If you need to use some specialized terminology, you also have to define that. And of course, you'll want to use general good writing, proofread for grammar and mechanics, as well as edit for concision, clarity, and fluency. Make sure that each of your definitions are only one sentence each. You can use lists to present these definitions, though. In fact, there's a sample definitions memo I've got posted in this module you probably want to take a look at to get some ideas for the document design and the overall approach to the information. Make sure your information is correct. So most of these things, there should be things you already know, but if for some reason you don't know the meaning of one of the words on the list, be sure to look it up. Now go ahead and write the definition using the style I've asked you to use and using your own words. And if you consult an outside source, be sure that you give credit to it with a citation. Don't just go to Wikipedia or dictionary.com and copy and paste definitions. This is not a copy and paste exercise, it's an exercise in creating definitions. Also this week you have a discussion 3, which is about social media. You'll want to be sure before you start this discussion that you read the short chapter on social media that I have posted in D2L. After you have read that chapter and you've read the assignment instructions, make sure that you're using the checklist for social media that I've presented to help you form your discussion, because we don't want you to just talk about things you like and things you don't like. We want to talk about effective social media, and the criteria on that checklist will help you do that. So that's everything for today. If you have any questions about assignment 4 or discussion 3 or about anything else discussed in this lesson, please don't hesitate to post to the questions discussion forum. Otherwise, I'll catch you next in Module 5. Bye-bye.